Balboa Park is pretty easy to spot from above. It's the big green square next to the city. When San Diego was still part of Mexico, authorities reserved 47,000 acres of land as a public park. In 1870, after the US took over California, they passed a law declaring 1,400 acres of that land for a permanent park, and that is where we are standing today, or I should say, sitting. This place was originally just called City Park, and it didn't have much to its name. It's full of canyons and housed only a women's shelter and a high school, along with some private gardens. But by 1909, that was all about to change because the Panama Canal was almost built, and they were the closest US port. They quickly planned an exhibition, and one of the first things they built was the California Building and Tower. Completed in 1915, 100 years ago, it housed an exhibit that grew into the current Museum of Man. It's a beautiful landmark with wonderfully crafted facades inspired by Spanish colonial architecture and San Diego history. The first thing you pass as you go through the Cabrillo Bridge, it's one of the most prominent symbols in San Diego. Even though it isn't the tallest building, you could still see it from everywhere if you know where to look. The entrance to the building beckons you through the power of San Diego's pioneers, prominently displayed as busts for you to behold. Cabrillo, Boscaino, Vancouver, Portola, Ascension, Jaime, and of course, Sarah. Inside the Museum of Man houses many large exhibits for you to check out, like the mysterious carvings from the Aztec culture, or some skulls that have had holes dug into them. Or even dive into the future by passing through this futuristic room where all of human achievements are cataloged. Where else in California, or in America, could you find a beer tasting exhibit along with a shiny full-scale model of 3CPO, without its counterpart, but instead with a model of a robot designed by Leonardo da Vinci in the same building? I tell you nowhere. Oh, and did I mention it also has an ancient Egyptian exhibit too? And this is just the first museum in the park. This is your skeleton. See those bony hands? See those bony feet? See that bony head? Look, primates and more skulls. See this bead? That bead represents 1 year ago. That's that one bead. That is 1,000,000 beads. Lucy in the sky with I shouldn't be singing that here. This is what she looked like when she was alive. Say cheese! Alright, I entered like a zombie heaven. Brains. This model shows the basic instructions for all life, DNA. The tightly woven double helix contains sugars, phosphates, and 4 bases. Oh, and before we go, this story. It's the top. The exposition was set to coincide with the opening of the Panama Canal, and the area first explored by natives, then by a man named Vasco Núñez de Balboa. Thus, City Park was renamed Balboa Park. At midnight, December 31st, 1914, President Woodrow Wilson pressed a telegram switch from the White House that turned on the lights at the park and began the exposition. Where the Southern California County's building was at now holds the San Diego Natural History Museum. When it comes to plate tectonics or climate change or geology or fossils, this is the place to go. First founded in 1874, the location was dedicated in 1933. During World War II, the building was used as a hospital, but their exhibits were boxed up and scattered across the country. Today, it is one of the best museums in San Diego, and sometimes will have very special exhibits like the skeleton of a mammoth, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the exhibits on bodies and the brain, or the once hidden treasures of King Tut. This is a great place to find just about anything. I love you, Walrus!
Shark, 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 shark.
It's a meteor, and it says, "Touch me. I now have the power of the meteor." So they have a little exhibit here on skulls. Over here they have these bird skulls, and you can see how small they get. Oh my god, look at little baby skulls, little baby skulls, look at little baby skulls, look at tiny, tiny skulls. This is a coyote skull. This is a pelican skull. This is a giraffe skull. This is an orangutan skull. This is a human skull. Turtle skulls. Turtle skulls. Look at the turtle skulls. Look at the turtle skulls. Look at the turtle skulls. Turtle skulls. Oh, look at this one. Look at this one. Turtle. Look at the alligator skull. Look, it looks no different from just the skull of a beaver. This is an Indian elephant skull. Say cheese. The exposition was a huge success. Future President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was Assistant Secretary of the Navy at the time, stopped by and boasted that San Diego would someday be a Navy port. Former President Howard Taft also stopped by, but it would be former President Teddy Roosevelt who would make a speech on the grounds asking to preserve the buildings, as it was normal at the time to scrap all of the buildings at the end of a World's Fair. The fair was so successful, it was extended through 1916. Thousands of people came and visited San Diego, and some of the buildings, like the California Tower and the Spreckles Organ Pavilion, were indeed preserved. The exposition put San Diego on the map and contributed to its future prosperity. I decided to step inside Casa de Balboa and to a little-known museum called the San Diego Model Railroad Museum to see what it was all about, and boy was I impressed. Most of these are miniature-scale models of railroads that once dominated San Diego County in the 1930s and the 1940s, between both World Wars and around the time Balboa Park had its second World's Fair. It gives you an idea how much simpler things must have been back then. The models are so impressive, I wanted to record every detail of them, from the bustling streets of downtown San Diego to the west, to the empty canyons and deserts to the east. Just look at the detail of the models, and you can guess that it took a long time and a lot of hands to put them together. You can even recognize some of the buildings that still exist today, like the Western Metal Supply Company building and the Santa Fe Depot. And it also gives you an idea of how much San Diego has grown as a metropolis since way back then. With a little imagination, you could probably see how much it will grow in the future. Today, there are a lot more skyscrapers than there were back then. There is less industry and probably more trees too. Toward the back of the museum, they had a kids section with miniature railroads and action figures riding on the trains. I could have been there all day. Next to the Air and Space Museum, there's a closed-down theater called the Starlight Ball. Constructed in 1935 and originally called the Ford Ball, it used to feature live operas, theaters, and musical performances, but for some mysterious reason, they've closed down now, and nobody wants to play at this beautiful 4,000 plus seat theater anymore. I wonder what would disturb a production company out of playing here. I'm assuming that's why it closed down. There's more to Balboa Park, and so we'll end this first part with a flyby over Balboa Naval Hospital, where most of my children were born. We'll come back to see more of the iconic buildings and what they hide inside.